Hey guys, welcome to my high Enrage Araxxor guide, aimed at those starting kills at around 160% to 300% Enrage levels. But before I get into the main part of this guide, I've got 3 disclaimers which I would appreciate if you listened into. So number 1, if you barely or never done Araxxor before, this guide isn't for you. I made a beginner's guide back in August 2014 that you can check out here. It's got all the basics covered, so make sure to rack up around 30 to 50 kills or so and get comfortable with the boss before you get onto this guide. Number 2, it might be hard to believe, but because after the shenanigans of my Araxxor death montage video, but the underlying theme that will be running through this guide is that it's aimed at consistent low risk farming of the boss. Which means I prioritize successful kills over high speed and high risk kills. So I'll constantly be telling you what not to do in these situations. And number 3, there are tons and tons of different strategies that work well for different people. But in this guide I'll mainly be focusing on the tactics that work well for me and the tactics I know a lot about, rather than the tactics that other people have mastered and have been effective at, of course. And I will mention some good methods, but if I haven't tried them or gotten to know them, I won't mention them in great detail. And yeah, feel free to let others know about your methods in the comment section though. It's a great way to try out new things. And remember to practice whichever method feels natural to you and keep using it, keep practicing. Don't force yourself if you don't think you can pull it off consistently. And remember, you can watch the whole guide or choose your desired section from the following menu, especially since there are so many paths and so many combinations of paths and routes you can take. So yeah. So what exactly is the point of doing these high Enrage kills? Well, since you can use a pheromone to reset your Enrage, and because it only costs 1 or 2 mil, there really isn't much point apart from if you're keen on farming the boss all day and at the same time not bothering to use the pheromone, because you've got the skills, mate. You've got the skills to take on those massive Enrage levels. I used to think that 300% Enrage kills maxed out my pet chance, but the truth is that the pet chance is based on how much Enrage you rack up over the course of the kill. So say you start off with 300% Enrage, and when you kill Araxxi, she's at 500%. It's obviously worse than starting off at 0% and ending up at 500%. If you're purely looking at maximizing your pet chance, the first pet by the way, not any of the others. So yeah, this can be done by running around the room once the acid spawns in phase 4 to max out the Enrage before you kill Araxxi, but I'm not really going to look at that in this guide because that's not what this guide's about. Okay, on to the first real part of this guide, the styles and setups menu. So in this guide I'll be focusing on ranging Araxxor because it is much safer to use ranged than melee at high Enrage levels, but I'll also mention some melee methods that have worked well for me, even though they are a lot riskier. Obviously you want the usual malarkey of overloads, preferably supreme overloads, a yak, tier 90 weapons and gear, 95 prayer and maxed or close to max combat stats. Actually the gear isn't so much of an issue, but the weapons are important. Okay, let's go over the inventory and beast of burden to start with. So you want to have actually if you're just going to do 1 kill per trip, you only need 2 restore flasks. Obviously take as many renewals and supreme overloads as you want. The shield's obviously for healing of the web shield, the web shield attacks, and vigor switch, obviously for obvious reasons, adrenaline pot for obvious reasons, anti-poison for phase 4 if you're ranging, because you only need it if Araxxor or Araxxi is ranging you, because otherwise you won't get poisoned unless you go through path 2 of course. And a lot of people don't know, but the Trollheim tablet I take because it's the closest teleport to a summoning obelisk, so I don't have to dismiss my yak and resummon it, because after 2 high Enrage kills your yak's gonna die, so you wanna heal it after every 2 kills or so. Pheromone only if you're not using instances. If you're using instances, I think you're guaranteed to get a favourable spawn. This is the brew to rocktail ratio I like to use. It's what I found I'm comfortable with. You gotta work it out for yourself what you're comfortable with. The reason I don't take too many brews is because at high Enrage levels brewing obviously reduces your ranged, even if it's only for a few seconds, and that reduces your accuracy. So I like to rock to a brew, that way I heal more as well. So obviously put those two on your bar. This is for the phase 4 switching. Action bar, well, I'll get to that later actually, but this is obviously my inventory and my beast of burden. I'd save that if I were you, if you wanna get some consistent kills. As for the range setup and action bar, this action bar I like to use when path 1 is open, because you want sacrifice there to heal off the minions, and the Farsight blood necklace I only use if I'm going through path 1 or if path 1 is open, because you can heal a lot from the spiders using this necklace. Otherwise I would use the Amulet of Souls, but it doesn't really matter. You can just use this one all the way because it's pretty much the same as a Souls amulet. And as far as the weapon is concerned, I prefer Noxious Bow. I preferred it for a long time because of the Biggie Bow, right? But genuinely speaking, it's actually quite good because of the long range. Ascensions are good as well. It doesn't really matter, it's just personal preference. And the reason I take a sign of item protection is because I don't like to take a scrimshaw. If I take a scrimshaw, I'll have 6 degradables that I'm wearing, so I won't be able to keep all of them. The way I've got everything at the moment, I'm only wearing 5 degradables, so this way I actually keep everything if I die, and I don't lose any charges, or you know, especially for the ones that degrade to dust like the sirenic. So that's why I have that. But obviously if you feel like you're not going to die, take the Scrimshaw's Cruelty, which is the best one possible, and I take this one because it's really useful, Asylum Surgeon Ring if you have it. Otherwise, you know, alternatives are Ring of Death, Leviathan Ring, and so on. Obviously Sharpshooter Aura if you can, otherwise you know, what do you call it, Invigorate or Vampirism. Quiver if you have it, or just arrows, and a full Sirenic, and the best cape possible, or Ava if you don't have this cape, or a max cape. In fact, the Ava is probably better than a max cape because max cape doesn't pick up the arrows. Oh, nice trim. Oh, Dardan. Oh my god. Okay. Yeah, that's about it as far as the gear is concerned. This is my action bar I like to use. I don't like to put this ability there, it's just too risky. Shadow Tendrils. And obviously swap this one out for this one, I guess, if path 1 isn't open, because this one is only useful if path 1 is open. And yeah, I like to use my Death Swiftness from my book rather than from there, and Surge is quite useful if you're going through path 1 or 2 and you want to Surge, or even path 3. Died at Araxxi thrice at 40% raged. Ouch. Okay, hopefully if you guys watch this video you won't be the same. But onto the melee setup. So when you're meleeing at high Enrage, you're guaranteed to die a lot. So oh, she died as well. Damn, a lot of people dying today. So basically you want to minimize the amount of degradables you take, but to be honest, by the time you see this video, it's likely that the Grave update will be out, so it doesn't really matter how many degradables you take, because it won't degrade on death by the time the Grave update comes out. So yeah, full malevolent, obviously. Soul for the best DPS, or you can take a Farsight blood necklace if you, not Farsight, some other one, the melee equivalent of the blood necklace, if you're going through path 1, which is quite useful. Quiver is optional. Dual drygores, doesn't matter which. Actually the mace are quite good because they have +10 prayer bonus. Gloves, either Tova or Razorback, or you can take, you know, the tanking gloves, what do you call it, pneumatics, and steadfast boots or Tova boots. Now I like to take Invigorate because it's quite important when you're meleeing to pull out as many thresholds as possible when you're zerked. So with this aura I can get back 10%. Combine that with the Vigour, I can get back 20%, and combine that with the Adrenaline Flask, I can actually get back 45%, which is quite useful. So that's why I like this aura, but you can bring Vampirism if you want, or you know, some other auras that you might like, but this is my number one when I'm meleeing. Obviously it's a Vampirism, Scrimshaw if you want. I like the sign to keep another item, sign of item protection. This is the best ring I can think of for meleeing because it can save you adrenaline, especially when you're zerked, which is extremely useful. You can do like a ton more damage if your ring activates, or you can bring Leviathan or a Ring of Death. They're both quite good as well. Vigor switch, actually talk through the inventory and yak, didn't I? The action bar, it's quite basic, it's quite standard dual wheel setup for melee. This sacrifice is there because of if path 1 is open, otherwise I wouldn't use it on my bar. Flurry also if path 1 is open, otherwise I'd use some other threshold. I like to have this open so that I can zerk, I can switch and then zerk. These two prayers are really important if you're going to melee Araxxi at high enrage. You really need to prayer flick, otherwise you're doomed if you're meleeing. And obviously Rocktail Brew, Slaughter amazing, Tendrils amazing. I like to use Dismember from this bar, otherwise I'd put it on my bar. Yeah, I'd put it on my action bar if path 1 isn't open, because I wouldn't use sacrifice. So yeah. Hey guys, welcome to the tactics section of this guide. So the way it's going to work is this. I'm going to have 2 separate sections for phases 1 and 4, but I'm also going to have 3 sections each for phase 2 and 3. This is because there are loads of different ways that you can take, loads of different paths you can take, and loads of different rotations. So I want to try and cover as much of it as possible, at least the ones that are essential. So I'm going to do a guide for each of the paths for each of phases 2 and 3. But I'm also going to include a section on melee, just one little section for melee tactics. Mainly it's going to be range tactics that I'm going to talk about for tips and tricks, but melee as well for those of you that really want to do it. Before we start, there are some important general things you should be aware of and doing throughout the kill to make high enrage kills so much easier. Some of these might be obvious, but I'll say them anyway. So number 1, anticipate or freedom every 5 normal attacks, obviously. Do it earlier rather than later, otherwise the cleaves and cocoon attacks can really hurt. And remember that attacks are faster from phase 3 onwards for all of the kills, all of the rotations. Use debilitate and devotion as much as possible, especially debilitate when meleeing can save you so much food. Trust me, you really need to use these 2 abilities as much as possible. Try and do it alongside using anticipate or freedom. Number 3, make sure to leave enough space to move back when you get cleaved. Tanking a cleave at high enrage is pretty much certain death, so make sure you have at least 2 squares to move back to, especially on the top part of the slope if you take the middle path. Number 4, don't risk it using high hitting abilities when you know Araxxor could cleave, or if you know it could use the web shield. For instance, when you're zerked or death swifted, don't use tendrils or destroy or assault or high hitting abilities like that. Just before he's about to do a special, if he web shields, you're screwed unless you react quickly enough to res the massive hit. Similarly, don't walk under Araxxor when you bleed him. If you know he could cleave you at that point when he's due to do a special attack, it could be a cleave and you could basically walk right into it, so don't do that either. Finally, keep your HP high at all times. It's easier said than done, but there are way too many damn times where I die to silly things like a normal attack or a cocoon because of low HP. So, you know, just Rocktail Brew every once in a while. Don't let your HP drop to below half, say, because otherwise you'll regret it. I'll obviously demonstrate these as we go along, but let's get on to phase 1 now. Your goal in phase 1 should actually be to use up as little food as possible and complete the phase. Doesn't matter how quickly you do it, and also take as little risks as possible. Remember all the things I just mentioned. So here I just use Snipe to heal myself, especially at high enrage levels. You can heal yourself a lot. So you're basically looking to build up to max adrenaline, death swiftness, use anticipation and freedom as much as possible. Use your thresholds. Don't use tendrils like I used there. That's pretty risky actually, so try not to use that. And whenever you think it's going to do a web shield, because it hasn't done one recently, then you want to make sure you don't use like high hitting thresholds, because they could literally kill you. And try and sneak in that snipe as much as possible to heal off. And remember to use anticipate, debilitate, devotion. Actually, those don't actually matter that much, but just get the phase over and done with. Eat as little food as possible and make sure it's successful. Okay, for phase 4 on the top path, you want to go to this position that I'm at currently. The eggs will spawn close to you if you're in this position, and you can death swiftness without moving too far out of it. But basically, I'm making sure to DPS as much as possible. But as soon as you see that animation, you want to get off Araxxor, because even the slightest hit can slightest hit while your death swiftness on Araxxor can kill you if the mirror back spawns instantly. And basically when the mirror back spawns or the pulsing, you want to kill them as fast as possible. So I like to put out a snapshot on them and then slowly go on to kill the other spiders. Take your time with it, and if an egg spawns, try and lure the bladed spiders to them, because then you won't get hit, and it's likely you'll get hit 0 and they will be instantly killed. So this phase is fairly straightforward as far as getting through it is concerned. You just got to kill the spiders as fast as possible, otherwise they could attack you, and they are pretty accurate. But the main thing is to make sure you don't take any unnecessary risks. So do what I told you before. Don't use thresholds when you see the animation. Kill spiders as fast as possible. Diversion is absolutely amazing here as well, because you can renew it every few seconds by killing the spiders. I think you can renew it twice. And the eggs are the most common attack, so you don't really need to worry about anticipating diversion. But at the odd times you will get these attacks, like the web shield attack, which you can heal off again, and you know, attacks like that. But the cleave and the cocoon are pretty rare in this phase. So yeah, just get it over as fast as you can. When you finish with the spiders, you can either move on, but I just like to stay and make sure it's low HP, put a bleed on it, and then surge away and move off. In this phase, it's really important that you have two things in your mind. One, he does not use the cocoon attack, so anticipate and freedom aren't that important. But two, he's always very close to you, so when you get cleaved, you have to have 2 spaces behind you to run back to, and it's a close off area. So as you can see, that bomb spider over there, that could have been pretty tight if I wasn't ready for it. Now let's take a closer look at what happens here. So I just death swiftness close to him, and he does a web shield attack while he's building up the acid from the pool. And what I decide to do is actually to snipe and try and sneak in a snipe res, which is extremely risky, so you shouldn't be doing it, because he's getting hit by the death swiftness, and I should be happy that the death swiftness attacks are actually preventing him from healing 1 case instead of trying to sneak a snipe off him. So don't do what I did here. Another thing that's really important is to make sure you give yourself a few seconds after the web shield attack finishes before you use your high hitting abilities, because if you use it too soon, it could actually still reflect back to you and kill you. So here I just use tendrils, which you shouldn't be using because it's very, very risky here. But as soon as this web shield attack finishes, I guess you could use it because it's not going to affect you. So when you get to the top, as you saw there, leave at least 2 spaces behind you, or turn him around so you can move down. But unfortunately there was a bomb spider next to me, so thankfully I had 100% adrenaline, and I could barricade the bomb spider from to prevent it from killing me, and by that time he just finished the phase and I could move on. But that doesn't always happen. Let's have a quick look at a situation where I wasn't so lucky. So I didn't spot this bomb spider here, but I was in a good position to move away from the cleave, but I panicked a bit here. Instead of surging down the slope quickly, I sort of stopped and tried to do something, but it didn't work out the way I wanted it to, and the spider hit me, and I didn't have 100% adrenaline to barricade it. So that's why it's quite important to keep your adrenaline high. And it might also be an idea to go up the slope once you see the bomb spider on the floor, because then you don't have to waste time trying to get away from it. You can just go up the slope and then start the acid from degrading the slope. Okay, I'm going to give you a piece of advice for the bottom path that you probably didn't expect. Check your yak. If it's not filled, lobby, because you ain't going to get a better chance than the rest of the kill, especially not in the middle of phase 4 when you realise you don't have enough food and you're going to die. So make sure to do that. And number 2, really, really important, prioritise getting into the light patches rather than getting to the eggs, to make sure you're on top of them when it blows up. Because at high enrage levels, especially when you're close to 300%, you'll get hit 1 case constantly if you're out of the light. And obviously it's not worth being out of the light for long periods of time just so you can get to the egg, because you'll get hit, you'll waste so much HP that way. So in this phase, turn off your scrimshaw as well, which I didn't do here, which was stupid of me. Turn off your scrimshaw, take it easy, keep your adrenaline up, resonance as much as possible. Prioritize the light over the eggs, as I said, but obviously if there's an egg patch of a bunch of eggs close to the light, make sure to go to them, and make sure to time your run to the eggs. That takes a bit of practice, but try and do that as much as possible. Keep your HP high as well, try and surge into the light patches, and overall it should be fairly easy. Just shield camp it and resonance as much as possible and prayer flick, and it should be over pretty soon, so it's not a bad phase, but you just use up a lot of food. Okay, moving on to phase 3. For path 1 you won't have any spiders because you've already dealt with all the minions before, but the only thing you really need to be aware of that his attacks are faster, and that he can do attacks back to back, he can cleave back to back, and he can do cocoons back to back, so you just need to be aware of that, and keep your HP high, because you have no idea when he's going to do a high hitting ability. Even his normal auto attacks hit pretty high. So what you need to be doing is follow the basics: debilitate, anticipate, devotion, death swiftness. Be very careful when he does a web shield, and don't do what I did here. But then you've also got the spiders to lure. You only really need to worry about this if phase 2 is open. He's going to spawn 4 spiders. So what you got to do, after he's done one of his specials, lure the spiders, which are probably close to him, all 4 of them, and lure them, and then wait until he's in between doing his specials, because you don't want to run under him when he's doing his cleave. So you just got to be aware of these things. It's being street smart, really. Being aware, using some common sense, and basically that's it. You just got to lure them under him, kill him off. Make sure he's on low HP when you do this, because otherwise he's going to hit you high for a long time. If he's on low HP when you do this, you're only going to have to face him for a short amount of time, because you'll only have to take off a bit of his HP before he loses all that enrage level. And it will save you some tears when you get to Araxxi as well. Okay guys, moving on to phase 3. If you came through the middle or the bottom path, you got to ask yourself one question: was path 1 open in that rotation? If yes, then as soon as you see that animation there, you need to get off Araxxor, because if you do a high hitting ability when you're death swiftness, you're basically going to kill yourself, mate. So all you got to do is kill all the spiders, especially the mirror back and the pulsing, as fast as you can. And remember, his attacks are a bit faster than normal. And just keep DPSing. Focus on the basics. Don't take any unnecessary risks. And if the middle path is open as well, then you're going to get some highly acidic spiders. And the way to lure them is like this. Take the spiders, go under him in between his special attacks, or when he's doing his web shield. That's probably the safest time to go under him. And make sure to only do it when his HP is low. Otherwise, you know, you're going to have to face him with a high enrage for a long period of time. This is just a DPS phase, of course, so you just got to DPS, keep DPSing, finish the phase as fast as possible. And this phase could be the defining phase in terms of whether you can pull off P4 or not, because you need a lot of food for P4, especially if you're not experienced. So in this phase, you really have to remind yourself to use devotion, especially when minions are around, and debilitate as much as possible to save yourself food. And of course, DPS always helps, because this is a DPS phase. You literally just kill Araxxor and you can move on. But make sure to lure the acidic spiders, because if you don't, P4 will be hell and you probably won't pull it off, especially if you're not experienced. Okay guys, on to phase 4, and I'll be splitting this part up into several parts, giving you tips on exactly how to go about it. But to start off with, you obviously want to use an ability to make sure your adrenaline doesn't drop. This is the best time to use an Excalibur spec. And repot if you need to, and also try and use anticipate or freedom, because as soon as Araxxi comes, she might do a cocoon attack like she is about to do here, and those two obviously are very useful to make sure you get freed really quickly. And also try and use your anti-poison at this point in time. Stay away from Araxxi and stand at the place I'm standing, because well, that's what I found to be a nice, easy place to stand to be able to prayer flick, which I'll get onto now. If you want to prayer flick successfully, you need to make sure you're well aware of which buttons are for which prayer, of course, without having to look down. Also, you need to be able to fluently rock or brew, especially for a P4 at high enrage. So you really need to like get used to these controls well before you get into P4, so practice them during the fight if you need to, like Rocktail Brewing and Prayer Flicking, because these are really important things. So, and I'll just show you how to do it effectively. Obviously swap out Surge for Death Swiftness if you want, because you won't need Surge anymore, and that will save you some hassle when you need to Death Swiftness in the heat of the moment. Now guys, prayer switching at Araxxi is actually not that difficult, but it's all about timing, and it's also all about keeping your HP as high as possible, as you will see why later. So there's 3 range attacks here. and I only switch to protect range at the last possible second when the range attack is just about to hit me, so that I can get as many range attacks out of Araxxi before I have to pray switch again as possible. And here, as you can see, the mage attack hit me at the same time, so I couldn't do much about it. So one of them had to hit me, and it was a 5k range attack unfortunately, and I forgot to anticipate, so he dragged me in the heat of the moment. And the mage attacks are actually quite a bit faster than the range attacks, so you can only do the same thing and get hit by the mage attacks twice instead of 3 times of the range attacks. So it's all about timing, guys. You just got to keep practicing it, and you'll eventually get it. But remember, keep your HP high. Devotion and debilitate. Debilitate is so important, guys, so important. You can avoid that 5k range attack if you debilitate, so you really got to use debilitate and devotion as much as possible. Okay guys, so I'm just going to commentate a P4, 300% enrage. So as you start off, make sure to use an ability to stop yourself from losing adrenaline, take food out, Excalibur, and then here he does a web shield, which I nicely use to snipe off a nice resonance. And then I use my anti-poison, and then I just go into the routine of prayer flicking, of using anticipate and freedom every 5 attacks, and of making sure my HP is high, and of course debilitate and devotion, which are really the only things you need to do to make it a very relaxing and calm P4. Keeping a HP high is very important as well. So once it gets to 50k, I get ready to use my death swiftness at around 35k. Let's just have a really close look at what I'm going to do here. So death swiftness at around 35k HP, and then get your adrenaline up as fast as you can while prayer flicking, while doing all those things. You don't need to anticipate or devotion anymore, of course. And then use your adrenaline pot when it's really close to 25k. Use your rapid fire because you will have enough adrenaline, and then once that's run out, you can use your basics slowly but surely, and then really watch out for that acid, because as soon as it hits you, you want to click 1 square away. You don't need to panic, you can just stand there, but you just got to wait until it hits you, and eventually, using my basics, I just pull it off. You can use revolution if you want as well. This is another really good method if you have ascension. So what I do here, I get my adrenaline up to 100% using a shield, death swiftness, and then basically what I want to do is get unload out. So I get to 75% adrenaline by using an ability, and then I use my adren pot, and then vigour on, and then offhand, and then I unload. Now it goes boom, 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 boom. Sit down, Araxxi, sit down. Okay guys, I'm just going to show you a full melee kill now. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to find any footage of like a high enrage melee kill, at least from phases 1 to 3, but I was able to find a 180% enrage P4, which is the highest I've successfully attempted, and I haven't actually attempted a 200%, maybe I'll be successful, but I'll show you that as well, and then I'll talk you through some of the different tactics for P4. But now I'm just going to show you a full-on melee kill. Look at all the tactics I use and absorb it for yourself. Remember all the things I said before about anticipating, freedom, and it's really important that you escape the cleaves in when you're meleeing. So yeah, let's get right into it, and here's some music to go along with it. Now that was quite an old kill where I didn't actually prayer switch, and later on I developed my prayer switching method, which is what you can see here. It's actually pretty necessary, I would say, if you want to be successful, have a really high success rate. Basically it's like meleeing Jad, but like 10 times faster. That's because you basically protect melee by default, and when you see the mage animation you protect mage and then quickly go back to protect melee by default, because melee hits you instantly, mage takes like half a second to reach you, and that's basically how you do it. Debilitate is your friend here. It lasts for a long time, and as you approach 25k, what you want to do in this method is to get to 100% adrenaline, and debilitate just before 25k, and then use assault, because you can see me use debilitate here and then assault here, and then after I got assault I can adren pot, get it up to 50% and use destroy, or I can just use basics, because by the time I use destroy the acid will hit me and I'll have to cancel my destroy, and but just by using thresholds and basics you should be able to get Araxxi done pretty damn easily using this method. And the advantage is by debilitating you and having to concentrate on so many things, you're probably not going to be prayer switching, and so the normal attacks that you would have got hit won't hit you as high because you've got debilitate on while you're assaulting and destroying and the acids following you. So that's why melee is so hard, but this is the best method I've come up with so far. There are a couple of things I haven't explicitly talked about, guys, and one of them is DPSing. This takes lots and lots of practice, and hopefully you picked up some stuff from this guide, but mostly it's about death swiftnessing once per phase, at least once per phase, and pulling out as many good thresholds within the 30 seconds as possible. There really is no substitute to practicing DPS and practicing Araxxor kills, so just go out there and try to keep getting better. And I think we both know that the truth is the real key to high enrage kills is high DPS, because the faster you get kills done, the less attacks Araxxor does on you, and so the less damage you take and the less food you use. It's like a chain, isn't it? But like I said, it's very easy to kill yourself if you're not concentrating, so that's essential too. You need to be aware of all the attacks, and that's exactly what this guide is for all the tactics, all the basic things you need to be aware of, and helping you out basically. And it's not just about the full out DPS, but street smart, well timed DPS. The last thing I want to say is that I'm practical about this boss, and I know you guys are gonna have periods where you're gonna constantly die like I did and become frustrated, but trust me, there will be equally long periods where you constantly get high enrage kills and feel like a boss, eventually at least. So just stick at it and practice if you're really keen to rack up the kills at this particular boss. As of now I'm at 550 kills and going for 1000, but I'm gonna have to leave you guys with this last video before my exams, and I will see you near the end of May. Good luck to anyone that has exams, and have a good one, guys.